Queen Lysera of Zephora sat in her palace chamber, listening to the soft hum of the city beyond the walls. Though she was blind, her other senses were sharp. She could feel the slight vibrations in the floor from footsteps, hear the faint rustle of the wind against the tall crystal towers, and even sense the subtle changes in the air when someone approached. Zephora was a planet of order and tradition, where every action was measured and calculated, and Lysera, despite her blindness, was one of the wisest rulers the planet had ever seen. Today was different, though. The air carried a tension she had never felt before. The Council of Elders had summoned her to discuss her marriage. Zephora's law required every queen to marry an alien of her own species to secure political alliances. Lysera had always followed the rules, but deep down, she felt weary of the endless expectations. She had no desire to marry someone just because it was tradition. Her thoughts were interrupted by a soft knock. "Your Majesty," came a calm human voice. Lysera's ears perked up. Humans were rare on Zephora, visiting mostly as diplomats or traders. She had studied them, read reports of their fragile bodies, their unpredictable nature, and their simple technologies. Yet there was something in the tone of this voice that made her pause. "Enter," she said. A man stepped in, careful not to disturb anything around her. His presence was confident but gentle. She could feel the warmth of him in the room, even before he spoke again. "Queen Lysera," he said, bowing slightly. "I am Captain Adrian Carter, human ambassador." Lysera studied him with her senses. His heartbeat was steady. His breathing was calm. There was courage in his voice, but also curiosity, the kind that reminded her of young Zephoran scholars when they first started learning about the world. She allowed herself a small smile. "You are far from home, Captain," she said. "Zephora is not an easy place for your kind," Adrian smiled. "I've always believed humans can adapt to almost anything." That simple statement intrigued Lysera. She had heard humans described as fragile, weak, and unpredictable, but here was one who spoke with quiet confidence, without arrogance. Perhaps they were not as simple as the council claimed. The Council of Elders arrived soon after, their robes whispering against the crystal floor. They spoke in a formal tone, presenting the reasons why Lysera must marry an alien, but her mind drifted to Adrian. Could it be possible that a human might be more than just a political figure? Could they be something extraordinary? Weeks passed. Meetings were held, traditions observed, and protocols followed. Yet Lysera found herself drawn to Adrian. She began learning about human customs, their small joys, and their peculiar ways of interacting with the world. He told her stories of Earth, of oceans and forests, of deserts and mountains, and she imagined them vividly in her mind. Though she could not see, Adrian's words painted pictures more real than any crystal hologram. Finally, the day came. The council insisted on a formal ceremony to unite Lysera and Adrian. It was meant to be political, symbolic, and short. Yet Lysera had decided to turn it into something more. She wanted to know this human, not just as a representative of his species, but as a person. The palace was filled with dignitaries, alien nobles, and a few curious humans. Lysera felt the vibrations of the crowd beneath her feet. She heard whispers, gasps, and the gentle hum of anticipation. Then she felt Adrian's hand lightly touch hers. "Are you ready?" he asked softly. Lysera nodded. She trusted him, though she did not fully understand why. The ceremony began. The officiant spoke in the alien language, the words echoing in the grand hall. Lysera focused on the sounds, the rhythm, and the energy of the moment. When Adrian spoke, she sensed sincerity, respect, and something deeper, something almost human in its warmth. When it was done, the crowd cheered. Lysera could feel the vibrations of their excitement, but her attention was entirely on Adrian. For the first time, she allowed herself to wonder, what is it about humans that feels alive? That night, Lysera guided Adrian through the palace gardens. The moonlight reflected off crystal fountains, and the air was rich with the scent of alien flowers. "I want to show you something humans do," Adrian said. He took her hands and guided her carefully. "We dance under the moon, feeling the earth beneath us, the air around us, and each other." Lysera hesitated. She could not see, but she trusted him. And so she let him lead. They moved slowly, deliberately, guided by trust and the rhythm of the night. She felt the strength in his arms, the steadiness in his steps, and the quiet joy in his laughter. For a blind queen who had never danced, it was overwhelming. Then something extraordinary happened. As they moved, Lysera felt a warmth in her chest, something beyond physical touch. It was a gentle pulse, almost like a heartbeat, but it was not hers. It was Adrian's. Humans, she realized, had a kind of energy that resonated with others. She had never sensed anything like it in her species. It was life. Lysera stopped and took a deep breath. I feel something I cannot explain, she admitted. Adrian smiled knowingly. Humans are full of surprises, he said simply. For the first time in her life, Lysera did not care about politics, tradition, or expectations. She cared about this human beside her. The night stretched on, filled with quiet laughter, stories, and shared moments that words could barely capture. Though she was blind, she felt as if she could see everything, colors, shapes, and emotions through him. By the end of the night, Lysera understood something profound. Humans were not fragile, weak, or simple. They were unpredictable, courageous, and full of life. And perhaps, just perhaps, this union was not a mistake, but a new beginning. The palace seemed quieter as they returned. The moon dipped behind the towers and the air cooled. Lysera sat on the balcony, her hands resting lightly on Adrian's. She realized that the shock she had felt was not from the marriage itself, but from the discovery of human potential, a potential that might change not just her life, but the fate of Zyphora itself. And with that thought, she smiled, fully alive in a way she had never imagined possible. The palace of Zyphora was quiet after the ceremony. Guests had returned to their quarters, and the grand hall echoed only with the distant hum of alien machinery and the soft breeze that slipped through the open terraces. Queen Lysera, still feeling the lingering warmth from the evening, remained in the gardens with Captain Adrian Carter. The moonlight shimmered off the crystal fountains, casting reflections she could not see, but she could sense their beauty through the gentle vibrations in the air. Adrian had insisted they take a walk alone. Lysera accepted, intrigued by his human ways. She trusted him in a way that surprised even her. Humans, she had been told, were fragile, easily influenced, and unpredictable. Yet this one, the human she had married, was steady, calm, and alive with quiet energy. Queen Lysera, Adrian said softly, there's something I want to show you tonight. Something humans do to feel life, to connect with the world around them. Lysera tilted her head slightly, listening. And what is that? Adrian smiled. Dancing under the moon, she paused. Dancing, a curious human ritual? She had studied humans for years, but had never fully understood the way they expressed themselves physically. And now, standing under alien stars and moonlight, she was about to experience it firsthand. Adrian extended his hand. Trust me, Lysera took it. His grip was firm but gentle, guiding her carefully along the smooth stone path of the garden. The air was fragrant with alien blossoms, yet she could sense the subtle scent of his human presence blending with hers. It was comforting, warm, and strangely alive. He began to move slowly, guiding her steps. Lysera followed, her other senses alert to every vibration in the floor, every shift in his balance. She had danced before in ceremonial rituals, but never like this. Humans moved differently, less calculated, more instinctive. There was freedom in the way Adrian moved, a kind of energy she could not quantify. You feel it, don't you? Adrian whispered. Lysera nodded, though she wasn't sure what she was feeling. Her chest pulsed with a warmth that was not her own. It radiated from Adrian, spreading through her, awakening emotions she had never experienced before. Humans had energy, something raw, alive, unpredictable, and it was contagious. They moved through the gardens, sometimes spinning slowly, sometimes standing still, just feeling the rhythm of the night. Lysera closed her eyes and let herself sink into the sensations, the brush of wind on her skin, the pulse of life in Adrian's hands, the vibrations of the stones beneath her feet. She felt more awake than ever, more aware of the world around her. "This is remarkable," she said quietly. "I never imagined humans could carry so much." "Presence," Adrian chuckled softly. "We surprise a lot of people. Most beings underestimate us because we are small, fragile-looking. But there is more in a human than meets the eye." Lysera's mind raced. For centuries, her people had relied on logic, science, and technology to measure strength. Humans seemed simple by those standards. Yet here was proof that their strength could not be measured in machines or numbers. It was something else entirely, something she could feel but could not yet define. As they danced, a soft hum of emotion passed between them. Lysera realized that humans could sense feelings in ways aliens could not. She could feel Adrian's care, his calm courage, and his curiosity. It was as though he radiated understanding, empathy, and life all at once. And she, blind though she was, could sense it fully. The night deepened. Shadows lengthened across the gardens and the air grew cooler. But neither of them noticed. They were lost in the connection that transcended words. A bond that was forming quietly but powerfully. Lysera felt something shift within her. The expectations of her society, the rigid rules, the pressure to marry a Zephyran, none of it mattered in this moment. She was experiencing a reality she had never known. Humans were alive in ways her species had never understood. After a time, Adrian stopped moving and took her hands into his own. "Do you understand now," he asked, "why humans can surprise you?" Lysera hesitated, searching for words. I feel something I cannot fully describe. Humans are different, strong in ways my people cannot measure, alive in ways I did not expect." Adrian smiled. "It's what I hoped you would see. Humans may not have your technology, your knowledge, or your centuries of experience, but we have heart, creativity, and resilience. And we can sense and respond to the world in ways others cannot imagine." Lysera considered this. She had ruled Zyphora for decades, studied countless species, and yet, in one night this human had shown her a truth that no alien science had revealed. Humans were underestimated. Yes, but their strength was in their unpredictability, their emotions, and their courage. The moonlight touched the tops of the crystal fountains, and Lysera reached out, her fingers brushing the water. She felt its coolness, its flow, and realized that humans had a way of connecting to everything around them, nature, emotion, and each other. And Adrian, he embodied all of it. "I am beginning to see," she admitted softly. "Humans are extraordinary." Adrian's laugh was soft, but it carried warmth. "I'm glad you see it, Your Majesty. Most species never do." Lysera felt a shiver of realization. The shock she had experienced the first night of their marriage was not simply about the union itself. It was about discovering the human essence, a force that was subtle, unpredictable, and profoundly alive. She had always thought that Zyphorans were superior in every way, but now she understood that her people had overlooked something important. Humans were not weaker. They were different, and that difference was powerful. They wandered deeper into the garden, passing alien flora that shimmered faintly under the moon. Lysera felt the pulse of life around her, the water, the plants, the wind, and she sensed that humans had a way of tuning into it, of feeling it fully. It was almost as if Adrian carried a piece of the universe inside him, a force that connected everything. "You must think it strange," Adrian said. "A queen, blind, learning to dance under the moon with a human." Lysera shook her head. "No, I think it is enlightening. I am learning that there is more to life than I have ever known. More than technology, more than rules. There is feeling, connection, courage, life itself." Adrian squeezed her hands gently. "And there is more. You will see. Humans can do extraordinary things when the moment demands it. You may not believe it yet, but one day you will witness it." Lysera felt a stirring of excitement. She had ruled Zyphora through intelligence and logic. But now she wondered what it would mean to rule with understanding, empathy, and trust in human potential. Could humans teach her people something they had long forgotten? Could they bring a new strength to her world? The garden grew quiet as they returned toward the palace. The air was cool, the fountains whispered softly, and Lysera felt a lingering warmth from the night. She had discovered something that changed her perspective completely. Humans were not what she had expected. They were not fragile, weak, or insignificant. They were alive, courageous, and capable of touching the world in ways Xiphorans could not. As they entered the palace, Lysera paused. "Captain Carter," she said, her voice steady, "I want to understand humans fully. I want to learn what your species can do, what you feel, and how you survive in ways we cannot measure." Adrian smiled, knowing that this was the beginning of something extraordinary. "You will see, Queen Lysera, and I will be here to show you." That night, as Lysera rested in her chambers, she reflected on the events. For the first time, she felt not just the weight of her crown, but the excitement of discovery. Humans, she realized, carried a force that could not be contained, measured, or controlled, and she, blind yet more aware than ever, had glimpsed it. The shock of that night was no longer a mystery. It was the awake. Life in the palace returned to a quiet rhythm after the wedding, yet tension lingered in the air. Queen Lysera could sense it in every vibration beneath her feet, in every whisper carried by the soft winds that floated through the crystal halls. The Council of Elders had grown uneasy. A human, fragile, unpredictable, and untested, now shared her throne. For most Xiphorans, this was unthinkable, and yet Lysera could not ignore what she had discovered about humans. Captain Adrian Carter moved through the palace with ease. He was careful to respect customs, but he was never hesitant or timid. In the first weeks of their marriage, he had already impressed palace staff and visitors alike with his calm composure and keen understanding of complex situations. Lysera watched him carefully, learning to sense his strengths without needing to see. One afternoon, the Queen summoned him to her private chambers. "Adrian," she said, her voice steady, "there are whispers among the council. They doubt your abilities, your place here. They think a human cannot be trusted with the future of Xiphora." Adrian inclined his head respectfully. "I expected as much, Your Majesty. It is not surprising. Humans are small, fragile, and often underestimated by those who do not know us." Lysera smiled faintly. "Yet I have seen more in you than in many Xiphorans. Tell me, human, how do you manage it? How do you remain so calm and strong?" Adrian leaned against the crystal balcony, feeling the vibrations of the palace floor beneath him. "We have to adapt. We survive by learning quickly, by understanding our environment, and by helping each other. Strength is not always measured in power or technology. Sometimes it is measured in courage, in empathy, and in the choices we make when faced with danger." Lysera considered his words. Her people prided themselves on advanced technology and precise strategy, yet she realized that humans possessed a hidden strength that could not be measured by machines or calculations. It was a strength of the heart and mind, of adaptability and creativity. The days passed, and Lysera began observing Adrian closely. She watched him in ways the council could not understand. She noticed how he approached palace workers with respect, how he helped resolve minor disputes with wisdom, and how he comforted those who were frightened or uncertain. There was no showmanship in his actions, only quiet competence. One afternoon, she arranged for a test of his abilities, but not directly. A small accident occurred in the palace kitchens. A fire ignited in one of the spice storage rooms. The flames were not large, but they spread quickly. Most Xiphorans would have panicked, calling for technology and alarms. But Adrian moved calmly, assessing the situation with logic and care. He directed the staff to contain the fire using both human methods and the alien safety systems. Within minutes, the fire was under control. Lysera felt a swell of admiration. Humans, she realized, were capable of thinking under pressure in ways her species often struggled to match. Their creativity, combined with courage and a willingness to act, allowed them to solve problems even in dangerous situations. It was not only bravery that impressed her, it was his empathy, his ability to understand others. When a frightened kitchen worker froze, Adrian knelt beside her, speaking gently, encouraging her to act. Lysera sensed the worker's relief and confidence returning almost immediately. This was a kind of power she had never fully understood, the power of connection, of inspiring courage in others. Rumors began to spread among the council. Some whispered that the queen had been bewitched by the human. Others claimed that Adrian's influence could disrupt centuries of tradition. Lysera ignored them outwardly, but inwardly she prepared herself for challenges. If humans were underestimated, she knew it was because most Zypherans had never seen their hidden strengths. The next test came unexpectedly. A rogue faction of nobles, unhappy with the queen's choice of husband, staged a protest in the palace courtyard. They called for Lysera to reconsider her marriage, insisting that a human could never rule beside a Zypheran queen. Their voices were loud, harsh, and filled with contempt. Lysera listened carefully, sensing the vibrations of their anger and fear. She could have relied solely on her guards or the palace defense systems to disperse them, yet she wanted Adrian to show her people what humans were truly capable of. Adrian stepped forward, calm and unafraid. He addressed the crowd in a human language, then repeated key points in Zypheran tones, ensuring everyone understood. His words were simple, clear, and powerful. He spoke of unity, of strength and cooperation, and of the potential that humans and Zypherans shared. At first, the nobles sneered. They were convinced that no human could command attention or respect. But as Adrian continued, his confidence and sincerity began to shift the energy in the courtyard. His presence, calm and steady, inspired respect. People listened. They felt the truth of his words. Lysera, standing nearby, felt something remarkable. Humans did not rely on intimidation, technology, or tradition to command respect. They relied on character, courage, and empathy. Adrian was not just surviving this test, he was excelling, proving the very point she had discovered in the gardens under the moonlight. After the crowd dispersed, Lysera took Adrian's hand. "You have shown them something they could not see. You have revealed the hidden strength of your people." Adrian smiled. Perhaps they always had the ability to see it. They just needed someone to guide them. Lysera nodded thoughtfully. She realized that humans were not only capable of courage and creativity, but also of teaching others, inspiring them to act in ways they had never imagined. And in this they were powerful allies, not just fragile strangers. In the days that followed, Lysera continued her secret observations. She noticed how Adrian handled negotiations with visiting diplomats, how he mediated disputes without anger or pride, and how he approached every challenge with curiosity rather than fear. She began to question the assumptions her people had made for centuries. Humans were underestimated, yes, but their strength lay not in physical power or advanced technology, but in resilience, empathy, and adaptability. One evening, Lysera sat alone in her private garden, reflecting on what she had learned. Her senses picked up every subtle vibration of the night, the rustling of alien leaves, the faint trickle of water, the distant hum of the palace. But she also felt something more, a quiet pulse of life and energy that seemed to emanate from humans themselves. Humans were not perfect. They could be impulsive, emotional, and unpredictable. But it was precisely these traits that made them extraordinary. They could respond to unexpected events with creativity, solve problems with courage, and inspire others to act in ways no machine or alien training could achieve. Lysera realized that the future of Zephora could be enriched by understanding and valuing these qualities. When Adrian joined her, he found her smiling softly. "You've been thinking," he said, sensing her mood. "I have," Lysera admitted. "I see now that humans are not weak or fragile. You are remarkable, Captain, stronger than anyone expected, and you have shown me the power that comes from courage, empathy, and creativity." Adrian took her hand gently. "And I have only just begun to show you." Lysera felt a thrill of anticipation. Her people had long measured strength in ways that humans could not fit. Yet here, in her palace, she was beginning to understand that true strength was more than technology or tradition. Humans possessed qualities that could change the course of her world. And so, part 3 of her journey closed with a quiet but powerful realization. The palace of Zyphora had never been so tense. Rumors had spread like wildfire through the corridors, whispers that a human had taken a place of power beside the queen. Some nobles were angry, others fearful, but no one expected what would happen next. It began quietly, almost imperceptibly. Palace sensors detected unusual movement in the outer walls. Guards reported small groups of armed Zyphorans moving with stealth, their intentions unclear. Lysera sensed the tension immediately. The vibrations under her feet, the faint rush of air, the subtle increase in the palace's ambient energy. Something dangerous was approaching. She called Adrian to her side. "Captain Carter," she said, her voice calm but firm. "I fear the palace is under threat. I need your judgment." Adrian looked around, assessing the situation through the vibrations of the floor and the sounds of movement outside. Though humans were smaller and seemingly less powerful than Zypherans, he had learned to observe carefully, to notice details others might miss. "We need to act quickly," he said. "Gather the guards, secure the civilians, and prepare defensive measures. But we must also anticipate their strategy. They will expect us to react in predictable ways." Lysera felt a surge of admiration. Even under pressure, Adrian remained calm, thinking through every step. Humans, she realized, had a remarkable ability to focus in moments of danger. It was not technology that gave them strength, but clarity of mind and quick, decisive action. The rogue faction of nobles struck suddenly. Armed and determined, they stormed the outer courtyard, attempting to breach the palace gates. The alarms rang and the palace guards moved into position, but it was Adrian who coordinated the response. Using both human ingenuity and his knowledge of Zypheran systems, he directed the defense with precision. He ordered some guards to use force strategically, while others created distractions, guiding the intruders into traps that minimized harm. Lysera moved beside him, listening to the vibrations of the intruders' movements, feeling the pulse of danger. She realized something extraordinary. Humans could think unpredictably, adapt instantly, and find solutions in chaos. Whereas her own species relied heavily on rigid planning, humans thrived in the unexpected. The battle was intense, though brief. Adrian led teams to protect civilians, secure escape routes, and prevent the attackers from reaching the inner palace. His movements were swift but calculated. Each decision balanced risk and safety. Lysera sensed the courage in him, the steady heart that did not falter even when danger loomed. One of the intruders, a particularly aggressive Zypheran noble, managed to get close to the royal chambers. Lysera sensed the threat immediately, her heightened senses alerting her to every step he took. She called Adrian, who was already nearby, and together they confronted the intruder. Humans, she realized, were fearless in ways her species could not always understand. Adrian did not hesitate. He assessed the situation, used minimal force, and neutralized the threat without unnecessary harm. As the last of the intruders were captured or driven away, Lysera felt a deep respect for him. Not just for his bravery, but for the way he protected life, valued cooperation, and maintained his humanity even in the heat of battle. Humans, she now understood fully, possessed a heroism that Zypherans had long underestimated. The palace was safe, but the crisis had revealed cracks in the council's unity. Many nobles were shaken by the humans' competence. Others were angry that someone they had dismissed as fragile had saved the palace. Lysera, however, felt a quiet sense of triumph. Adrian had not only defended the palace but had demonstrated the extraordinary potential of humans. That evening, as the palace settled into a cautious calm, Lysera led Adrian to the private gardens. The moonlight reflected off the crystal fountains, but this time the serenity was different. It was not just the calm of the night. It was the calm after danger, the calm that comes from triumph and trust. "You have done something remarkable tonight," Lysera said softly. "You have saved my people and my palace. You have shown me, and everyone who witnessed it, the true strength of humans." Adrian smiled, modest as ever. "I only did what I had to do. Humans can be small and underestimated, yes, but when the moment demands, we rise, we adapt. We protect those we care for." Lysera felt a warmth in her chest, a resonance of truth in his words. She realized that humans were not just capable of extraordinary deeds, they could inspire greatness in others. The nobles who had doubted him would now see that courage and ingenuity were not bound by size or species. In the days that followed, Lysera worked to consolidate the palace's defenses while continuing to observe Adrian. He handled meetings with visiting dignitaries, oversaw repairs, and ensured that the palace ran smoothly, all with the same calm focus and quiet strength he had shown during the attack. She noticed something else. His presence seemed to influence others subtly. Palace staff who had once been timid now acted with confidence. Guards moved with purpose, inspired by his example. Even some of the nobles who had opposed him began to reconsider their prejudices. Humans, she realized, had a way of awakening potential in others, of leading without dominating, of inspiring courage through example. Lysera's admiration grew daily. Humans were not merely visitors to her world. They were teachers, guides, and companions capable of shaping the future. She had always believed that power was measured in technology and strategy. But now she understood that true power also lay in empathy, adaptability, and the courage to act when it mattered most. One evening, as the sun set behind the crystal towers, Adrian and Lysera stood on the balcony overlooking the city. The events of the past days weighed heavily in her mind. The crisis had tested not only the palace but also her understanding of humans. She realized that humans were more than a political symbol. They were a living example of resilience, ingenuity, and heroism. "Adrian," she said, her voice quiet but full of conviction, "you have changed my view of humans completely. You are not just my husband. You are proof that humans can achieve greatness in ways we Zypherans never imagined." Adrian turned to her, his expression calm but earnest. "Thank you, Your Majesty. But I am only one human. There are many more out there, each capable of extraordinary things, and together, humans and Zypherans could accomplish even greater things." Lysera nodded thoughtfully. The thought excited her. A partnership between humans and Zyphorans could bring about a new era of cooperation, strength, and understanding. She had seen the first glimpse of it through Adrian's actions, and she knew that this was only the beginning. That night, as Lysera rested in her chambers, she reflected on the events. The crisis had revealed much, not only about humans but about herself. She had learned to trust, to observe, and to value qualities that her own species often overlooked. Courage, empathy, adaptability. These were strengths that could not be measured by machines, calculations, or tradition. They were strengths that could change the course of history. And Adrian, he had shown her all of it. Lysera felt a quiet thrill of anticipation. The future was uncertain, yes, but it was also full of potential. Humans, she realized, were not only capable of great feats, they were capable of shaping the future, of inspiring others, and of proving that heroism was not limited to one species. As she drifted into sleep, she thought of the moonlit garden, the pulse of life she had felt that night, and the courage Adrian had shown. Humans were extraordinary. They were unpredictable, yes, but their unpredictability was their strength. And in that, Lysera saw hope, not just for her marriage, but for her people and for the world they shared. The crisis had ended, but its lessons would endure. Lysera knew the palace of Zyphora was alive with quiet energy in the days following the crisis. Guards moved with steady purpose, palace staff whispered cautiously, and even some of the nobles who had once doubted Queen Lysera and her human husband found themselves reconsidering their positions. Adrian had become more than a visitor or a symbol. He had become a living example of human potential. And Lysera, blind yet perceptive in ways few could match, sensed it all. It was a warm evening when Lysera summoned the Council of Elders to the central hall. The grand chamber, usually filled with ceremony and tradition, now carried a different air, one of anticipation, respect, and curiosity. Lysera's pulse, which she could always feel in her own body and in the vibrations of her surroundings, was steady. Tonight she would address not just the council, but her people and reveal the truth she had discovered about humans. Adrian stood beside her, calm and attentive. He had learned much of Zypheran etiquette and had gained the respect of many, but he did not seek attention. His strength was quiet, steady, and profoundly human. He had faced danger, protected the palace, and inspired courage in ways that no one had expected. Now it was time for the world to recognize it. Lysera raised her voice, clear and confident. "Council of Elders, distinguished nobles, and citizens of Zyphora, I stand before you not only as your queen, but as a witness to something extraordinary. For too long we have underestimated humans. We have judged them by appearances, by their fragile forms, and by our own assumptions. But we have been wrong." The room fell silent. Every being present felt the weight of her words, the sincerity behind them. Some were skeptical, some anxious, but all listened. Adrian spoke softly, translating Lysera's words into the universal language when needed, emphasizing not authority, but truth. "Humans are not weak," he said. "They are capable of courage, empathy, and ingenuity. They rise to challenges, protect those they care for, and act in ways that can change the course of events." "You have seen it yourselves," Lysera nodded. "You have seen it in the recent crisis. You have witnessed how a human can think under pressure, act decisively, and inspire others to act with courage. It is not just technology or strength that matters. It is the heart, the mind, and the spirit that defines true capability. The council members murmured among themselves. Many felt their previous beliefs challenged. Humans had been treated as fragile, insignificant visitors, yet here was undeniable proof of their value. Some began to bow their heads in quiet acknowledgement, recognizing that Lysera's judgment was sound. Lysera continued, "Captain Adrian Carter has shown us that humans are more than symbols or diplomats. They are beings capable of greatness, and I, as your queen, recognize and honor this truth. Humans can be our allies, our teachers, and our companions. Together we can achieve things we could not alone." She paused, letting the words sink in. The room was charged with a new energy, a mixture of wonder, respect, and cautious optimism. The citizens and nobles alike were beginning to understand what she had discovered in the gardens, during the crisis, and in the quiet moments shared with Adrian. Humans were extraordinary, and their potential was now undeniable. Adrian stepped forward, his voice calm and steady. "We humans do not seek to dominate, nor do we claim superiority. But we can learn, grow, and act alongside others to achieve great things. Queen Lysera has shown courage in recognizing this truth, and it is our honor to work together for a stronger, united future." Lysera felt a warmth in her chest, a vibration of approval and hope. Her people were listening. They were beginning to see beyond prejudice and tradition. And in that moment, she realized that the greatest shock of all, the discovery she had felt on the first night, was not a surprise of the body or the senses, but a revelation of potential. Humans were capable of heroism in ways Zypherans had never considered. In the weeks that followed, the palace and the city of Zyphera began to change. Humans and Zypherans worked together to strengthen defenses, improve communication, and share knowledge. Alien technology combined with human creativity resulted in innovations that none of the council had imagined. Citizens marveled at the collaboration, recognizing that the union between Lysera and Adrian was more than symbolic. It was transformative. Lysera spent her days learning from Adrian, discovering human approaches to problem-solving, leadership, and empathy. She marveled at how humans could inspire courage simply by example, without orders, intimidation, or rules. And she realized that this ability to influence others through presence and understanding was perhaps their greatest strength. One evening, as the twin moons of Zyphera hung low in the sky, Lysera and Adrian walked through the restored palace gardens. The fountains sparkled in the moonlight, and the air was filled with the scent of alien blossoms. Lysera reached out, touching the water as she felt its gentle vibration. "Adrian," she said softly, "you have changed not only my understanding of humans, but also the future of my people. I see now that greatness is not bound by size, species, or technology. It is found in courage, empathy, and the willingness to act when it matters." Adrian squeezed her hand gently. "And I see that Zypherans too can achieve even more when they embrace the strengths of others. Together we can build a future that honors both our worlds." Lysera smiled, a feeling of profound fulfillment washing over her. The first night of their marriage had revealed something extraordinary, the pulse of human energy, empathy, and life. But it was only now, through shared trials and understanding, that the full picture had emerged. Humans were remarkable. They were heroes in ways the galaxy had never expected. In the days that followed, Lysera made her recognition of humans' contributions official. She introduced reforms to the palace, encouraging collaboration between Zyphorans and humans in governance, science, and exploration. Young Zypherans looked to Adrian as an example of bravery, creativity, and moral courage. Humans who visited or lived on Zyphora began to be respected, valued, and trusted in ways they had never experienced. And throughout it all, Lysera stood at the center, proud and grateful. She had discovered what few of her species had ever considered. Human potential was limitless when given trust, guidance, and opportunity. She understood that their strengths, courage, empathy, adaptability, and inspiration could change not just a city or a planet, but an entire civilization. One quiet night, as the palace lay still and the stars glimmered overhead, Lysera reflected on the journey. From the first night under the moonlight to the crisis that tested them both, she had learned a profound truth. Humans were not just companions, allies, or symbols. They were capable of extraordinary heroism. Adrian stood beside her, silent but attentive as they looked out over the city. She felt the connection between them deepen, strengthened not by ceremony or tradition, but by shared experience, trust, and recognition of potential. "You have shown me the world in ways I never imagined," Lysera said. "I was blind in more ways than one before you arrived," Adrian smiled softly. "And you have shown me that courage, wisdom, and vision are not limited to one species. Together we are stronger." The twin moons shone down on them, and for the first time Lysera felt fully alive, not just as a queen, not just as a ruler, but as a being capable of understanding, learning, and embracing the strengths of others. Humans, she realized, were extraordinary, and together, they had the power to shape a future that no one could have predicted. And so, the story of the blind alien queen and her human husband reached its full revelation. What she had discovered on the first night, the shock of human potential, had grown into a recognition of greatness, courage, and unity. Humans were no longer underestimated. They were respected, admired, and celebrated. Lysera took a deep breath, feeling the pulse of life around her, the city, the people, and the quiet strength of her husband beside her. She knew that the future was bright, not because it was safe or predictable, but because it was filled with possibilities. Possibilities shaped by courage, empathy, and the extraordinary capabilities of humans. And with that knowledge, Lysera smiled, ready to face the future, not alone, but together with humans, her people, and her remarkable husband, Captain Adrian Carter. The palace, the city, and the entire world of Zyphora would never be the same again.